I'm joined in studio by Dave Swart. He's the high school principal of Riverside College, and he also happens to be a youth counsellor. He's joining us in studio to speak about something very, very interesting. That's e-learning. We certainly know that there was a huge push by Gauteng MEC for Education, Panyaza Lesufi, to have paperless classrooms. Dave is going to speak us through the practicalities, and he's also going to tell us if this is something that we can really expect to work in South Africa. Dave, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Now, it really is an exciting thought that learners can really be plugged in and learning. So when we talk about an e-learning environment, what do we mean?
Well, basically what we are talking about is that students will be able to come into the classrooms. There will be no textbooks, there will be no writing books. Everything will happen via laptops or cell phones. All the assessments that they do will be marked online. So it's very much a case of out with the old and in with something brand new.
Now, Dave, to all the parents sitting out there, I imagine their first question is, I cannot get my child off Facebook when they're at home on their device.
Yes.
So Dave, how can you assure me that they're going to be focused on their schoolwork and, I don't know, not playing Candy Crush or whatever it is?
You know, with the youngsters of today leading technology the way they are, it is very difficult to say that they will not be able to go onto Facebook. But there are various programs available that allow the schools to, from their server, block certain sites and give them access only to certain areas that they want them to use. So yes, that does help. But we know the youth today, they can hack into anything, they can try anyway. So it's an ongoing process where new software needs to be developed all the time to keep them off sites like that.
Now, we certainly see that in some cases, you'll remember, we have massive textbook delivery problems where entire provinces are without a specific textbook that we need. This, of course, will cut that problem out.
Yes, most definitely. We will not have the situation where you've got half the class, even in the private schools, you order textbooks and half the children have and half of them don't. So it's not only in the government schools where that happens, and that will definitely cut out that problem mostly.
From an educator's perspective, is this a future that you are looking forward to?
I am not totally against it. I do look forward to it in certain aspects, but there are some disadvantages that I envisage as a teacher. The human interaction that you have with the children. I, interestingly enough, had a conversation this morning with some children that have been in a school where they've been paperless, and that interaction that they are used to having with the teacher is just not there anymore. Children become terribly distracted. They often are downloading all kinds of things off the internet without the teachers knowing it. So there are going to be a lot of issues that are going to have to be resolved before it runs as smooth as what it should.
But it's certainly a way to address many of the inequalities in the country when it comes to learning. Going back to what we were talking about, textbook delivery and access to information. But of course, this comes at a price. It needs to be implemented in schools. The learners will need devices. Practically,
yes.
Do you see this happening in South Africa?
You know, you are again going to sit with a situation in South Africa where schools in your privileged areas are going to be able to implement it, and schools in your less privileged areas are not going to be able to implement it that easily. The setup costs, the cost of the software is astronomical. And then also the maintenance of the hardware. So yes, it's a very good idea, and it's a very good thing to work towards, but it's not going to be implemented equally across the country.
Not for the foreseeable future.
Not for the foreseeable future. You have areas where they do not have internet access. Without internet access, the laptop means nothing to them. So we have a long way to go.
Certainly. Now, on News 24, just last week, we posted a video of one of these paperless wireless classrooms. And what had happened was one of the teachers was actually caught on camera assaulting a student. And because of that, the student was able, or some of the students in the class were able to film on a tablet, and this went out, and the teacher's now being suspended. And in that way, we're seeing that this access to technology certainly empowers students to stand up for their rights, at least, a bit more. I just like your thoughts on that.
It does empower them in more than one way. Interestingly enough, the conversation I had with some students was that the children that could not afford the latest computers and the latest software there were actually incidences where the bullying in the schools escalated because of it. So yes, again, it has advantages where the children will be able to stand up for their rights. They will be able to prove in instances where educators are doing things they shouldn't be doing. But the other side of that is that they are still going to use it in a negative way. So it's like with everything else, there has to be balance.
Now, I was very interested to hear that you chatted to your students about this before coming through today. What was the general feeling amongst the students on this topic?
Look, the first thing they say is, oh yes, let's do it, because you've got to add the element of fun to teaching and to learning, which is fine, but that is not what it's all about. I asked them what entry-level jobs do they know where they will be able to walk in and not need to read and write on paper. And for a moment they couldn't answer me, and then they said, yes, but if you know how to use technology, you will be able. I said, but the thing is that you still need to learn to read and write. Writing is part of how we develop and how we learn to learn. So you cannot take all of that away altogether. The other thing they said is that yes, they have got one teacher in a classroom, but Google, they've got the world at their fingertips, which is also very true. So there definitely is a place for it. Whether it needs to replace the current system altogether, in my opinion, no. But that's just my opinion and from my experience of teaching. For a lot of these youngsters, the teachers are the only contact that they have with a role model, with a father figure, with a mother figure, and to take that out of the equation altogether, in my opinion, is not a good idea.
Perhaps what we need to look at as South Africans then is a mixture of the two, a one-on-one teaching presence with your educator, because I know there have been particular teachers in my life who have really shaped me. In fact,
Yes.
My high school history teacher was at my wedding. She was so influential in my life.
Yes.
So perhaps we need a mixture of the two, a mixture of technology with some of the teaching practices that we know and love.
Yeah, that's most certainly my position on it. And also when you're looking at barriers to learning, we've heard a lot of inclusive education and how we need to take away the barriers that a lot of these children have. And I don't see that happening with a paperless classroom. Some children just do not have the ability to grasp those concepts, and they are going to be left behind. So that is my concern as an educator, is it going to be for everybody a situation where it's going to have benefit for them, or are some children still going to end up not having the full benefit of it, just as they do in teaching today?
Well, Dave, I think this is a conversation that you and I can keep having,
Yes.
and we'd certainly love to have you back again to see, once more of these classrooms have been rolled out, how students are interacting. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.